The black ocean of space was silent. No stars moved, no sound. Only a small broken escape pod drifted between dying suns. Inside it, a child was crying. He was not human. His skin had a faint silver glow, his eyes large and bright like liquid glass. Tiny hands pressed against the pod window as he watched pieces of his world vanish behind him, glowing fragments of a destroyed planet. His name was Lero. He was only 9 cycles old. Smoke filled the air vents. The pod shook again, a reminder that the attackers were still searching. He could still hear the voices of his people from minutes ago, screams cut by static. He had seen his mother push him into the pod, shouting, "Run! They're coming!" Then a flash, then silence. Now there was only darkness. The pod AI spoke in a calm voice. "Life support critical. Oxygen 32%. Lero hugged his knees and whispered, "Don't let them find me, please." He remembered the stories about the ones called humans. The old tales said they were monsters in flesh form, that they burned whole worlds when angered, that no alien could survive meeting them. His people feared them more than death itself, and now as his pod drifted near an unknown system, the radar blinked red. Something large was approaching. The AI spoke again. "Contact detected. Unknown vessel incoming." Lero froze. His heart raced. "Who is it?" he whispered. The pod replied, "Species match human, probability 98%. Lero's eyes widened in terror. "No, no, not them." He tried pressing buttons, tried to make the pod turn away, but the engines were dead. The pod could no longer move. Outside, the darkness began to change. A massive shadow covered the stars. A ship, huge metal alive with light, slowly appeared. It was shaped like a beast from nightmare, full of scars and heavy armor. Its name, written in rough white letters, glowed faintly on the side, UNS Valkyrie. Lero whispered to himself, "They found me. The monsters found me." The human ship's tractor beam locked on. The pod trembled as it was pulled closer. The light from the ship's hangar filled the small pod, bright, white, and cold. Lero covered his eyes. He wanted to scream, but no sound came. The voice of the AI announced, "Docking complete." A loud hiss echoed as the pod doors began to open. Smoke drifted out. Boots hit the floor. Shadows moved. A deep voice spoke through a translator. "All right, stay calm. We got a survivor in here." Lero's breathing stopped. He saw tall shapes in metal suits, their faces hidden behind dark helmets. One of them knelt down and removed his helmet. A human face, tired eyes, rough beard, and a small scar near his temple. He looked kind. The man whispered, "Hey there, little one. You're safe now." Lero backed away, shaking his head. "No, don't hurt me. Please." The man frowned. "Hurt you?" No, kid. We're not here to hurt you." He slowly extended his hand. "Name's Commander Hayes, United Nations Space Corps. You're safe aboard the Valkyrie." Lero didn't believe him. Every story said humans smile before they destroy. He pressed himself against the wall. His small voice cracked, "Humans, kill. Humans, destroy." The humans looked at each other, confused and sad. One of them, a woman with red hair, whispered, "Guess the galaxy still tells those stories." Hayes sighed. "We'll change that one day." Hayes looked back at Lero. "Listen, kid. I don't know what happened to your planet, but you're the only life sign we found. You're safe here. I promise." Lero wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. His home was gone. His body was weak. He finally whispered, You will not eat me." Hayes laughed softly, shaking his head. "No, kid. We're not monsters." He took off his jacket and wrapped it around the small alien. "You're freezing. Let's get you some warmth." As they walked through the ship's corridor, Lero stared at the walls. Everything was made of iron and light. Strange symbols blinked on screens. Humans passed by. Some smiled, some saluted their commander. None of them looked like monsters. Still, in the back of his mind, Lero could not stop shaking. He remembered his father's voice long ago. "If you ever see a human, run and never look back." Now he was surrounded by them. They reached the med bay. A human doctor scanned him, whispering, "He's malnourished." "Poor kid's been through hell." Hayes nodded. "Keep him alive. Whatever it takes." As Lero lay on the bed, his eyes grew heavy. For the first time in hours, he felt warm. He heard soft music in the background, something calm, human. He didn't understand the words, but the melody felt like hope. Then, as sleep began to take him, the lights flickered red. A warning siren filled the ship. Incoming vessels detected. Multiple hostiles approaching. Hayes turned sharply to the bridge. "Shields up. Prepare for contact." The doctor held Lero's hand. "Don't worry. They'll protect you." But Lero's heart froze. The attackers. He knew that sound. They had found him again. As the alarms echoed, the child whispered one last word before the screen cut to black. "They're here." The red alarm lights flashed through every corner of the ship. Sirens screamed. Voices shouted orders. The calm, warm place that had just saved Lero now felt like a storm of fear. Commander Hayes ran to the bridge, his boots echoing through the metal floor. "Report!" he shouted. The pilot, a young woman named Ava, answered, "Multiple enemy ships on sensors. Looks like 12. No, 15. They're closing in fast." Hayes narrowed his eyes. "Same ones that destroyed the kid's planet?" Ava nodded. "Energy signature matches." "It's them, sir." Hayes turned toward the medbay camera feed. The small alien child was sitting up on the bed, watching the flashing red lights with wide eyes. Hayes muttered, "So they came for him. Poor kid." The bridge shook as the first plasma round hit the shields. "Shields holding at 80%, shouted another officer. Hayes replied calmly, "Get ready to return fire. We don't run from bullies." Down in the medbay, Lero covered his ears as explosions echoed through the ship. The doctor, a kind woman named Dr. Mara, stayed beside him. "Don't be afraid, little one. The commander will protect us." Lero trembled. "You fight them? They are many. They will kill you." Mara smiled softly. "We've been through worse. Humans always fight back." Lero didn't understand. Why would these humans fight for him? He was nothing to them, just a strange, scared child from a broken planet. His own people would have left him behind. The ship shook again. Metal groaned. Then a voice came through the speaker. "All decks brace for impact." Lero held tight to the bed. The sound of explosions grew louder. Mara whispered, "Just a little longer. We'll make it." On the bridge, Hayes stood like a rock. The main screen showed the enemy fleet, massive ships shaped like blades glowing with blue energy. Ava said, "They're demanding surrender." Hayes smirked. "Surrender to them? Not a chance." He opened a channel. "This is Commander Hayes of the UNS Valkyrie. You attacked a civilian world and now you're chasing a child. That ends here." Static filled the line. Then a cold alien voice replied, "That child belongs to us. Hand it over, human, and we may spare your lives." Hayes looked at his crew. "They talk like they own people." "Not on my watch." He cut the comms. "Weapons full power. Target their lead ship. Let's show them what dangerous species really means." The gunners smiled. "Aye, sir." Moments later, the Valkyrie fired, beams of pure light cutting through the dark. One enemy ship exploded instantly. Lero felt the blast rumble through the ship. He ran to the medbay window and saw bright flashes outside. Humans fighting against giants. It looked impossible. Yet they did not run. They did not beg. They fought like fire itself, Mara whispered to herself. Always outnumbered, never outgunned. Another explosion rocked the ship. Sparks flew. Smoke filled the bridge. Ava shouted, "We've lost engine 2. Hayes gritted his teeth. "Reroute power to shields. Keep firing." The humans moved fast, every person focused, every voice steady. They were not afraid, even when death stared right at them. Lero watched them on the screen, his hands shaking. "They fight for me?" he whispered. Minutes passed like hours. The battle outside looked endless. The enemy ships circled, firing plasma storms. The Valkyrie twisted through debris, returning fire every chance it got. One by one, smaller human fighters launched from the hangar. Their pilots shouted through comms, "Valkyrie, this is Eagle 1, we've got your back." "Copy that, Eagle 1. "Give 'em hell." Lero stared in disbelief. These humans risked everything. For a single alien child they didn't even know. Then a massive blast hit. The ship lurched violently. Lights went out for a moment. Smoke poured through the bridge. Ava shouted, "Bridge hit!" "Commander, we've lost contact with engineering." Hayes coughed through the smoke. "Get us power back. I'm not dying today." Outside, 2 enemy ships closed in on the Valkyrie, ready to finish it. Hayes looked at his tactical screen, then whispered to himself, "If this is how we go, We go loud. He turned to his crew. Arm the rail cannon. Full charge. We'll take their flagship with us. Ava's eyes widened. So that shot could rip our hull apart. Hayes smiled faintly. Better than surrendering. The rail cannon charged, a deep thunder-like hum filling the ship. Energy built up until the air itself seemed to vibrate. Lero could hear it from the medbay. He asked Mara, "What are they doing?" She answered quietly, "Something very, very brave." Then the ship fired. A beam of energy shot forward, tearing through the darkness. It hit the enemy flagship dead center, the explosion brighter than any sun. For a moment, everything went silent. Then the shockwave hit. The Valkyrie spun out of control, lights flickering, alarms screaming. Lero was thrown from his bed. He crawled toward the door, shouting, "Commander!" "Doctor!" Smoke filled the corridors. Humans ran, helping each other, dragging the wounded. Even injured, they kept moving. No one left behind. Lero saw one soldier lift another on his back. He heard him say, "No one dies alone on my ship." The small alien's heart raced. This was not what monsters looked like. Monsters destroy. But humans, they protected. Even when dying, they still protected. He reached the bridge door. It was half broken, sparks flying. He pushed it open with all his strength. Inside, he saw Hayes slumped near the captain's chair, bleeding from his head. "Commander," Lero cried. Hayes looked up weakly and smiled. "Still here, kid. Told you we don't hurt children." The child's eyes filled with tears. "You fight for me." "Why?" Hayes whispered. "Because someone has to." Then the power died. The ship went dark. Only emergency lights remained. The radio crackled, a faint signal from the enemy fleet. "They are still alive. Finish them." Lero looked out the window. More enemy ships were coming. The Valkyrie floated helplessly, smoke trailing behind it. The boy whispered, trembling, "They'll kill us all." But Hayes, even half-conscious, smiled again. "Not if we kill them first." Darkness filled the Valkyrie. Only red emergency lights glowed faintly across the corridors. Smoke and fire drifted through the air, and the sound of breaking metal echoed like thunder. Commander Hayes leaned against the wall, bleeding from a cut above his eyebrow. "Status report," he shouted. Ava coughed through the smoke. "Engines offline. Shields down to 15%. Weapons half operational." Hayes forced himself to stand straight. "Then half will do. Humans don't need full strength to fight." The crew, bruised and exhausted, still moved with purpose. They didn't cry. They didn't run. Every person was trying to keep the ship alive. Down in the medbay, Lero sat beside Dr. Mara. The lights flickered above them. He could hear distant explosions. "Why don't they stop?" he asked quietly. "They can still escape." Mara looked at him gently. "We don't leave people behind, Lero, not even one." "But they're dying," Lero whispered. She smiled sadly. "Yes, but they'd rather die saving someone than live doing nothing." Another blast rocked the ship. A cabinet fell and shattered on the floor. The doctor grabbed Lero's hand and pulled him toward the hallway. "Come on, we need to reach the safe deck." They ran through the corridors, passing injured humans, broken walls, sparks flying like fireflies in smoke. One soldier lying on the floor still smiled at them and said, "Keep running, kid. The Valkyrie still fights." Lero couldn't understand it. These humans, they looked like demons when they fought, yet they helped each other like family. On the bridge, Hayes stared at the flickering screen. More enemy ships were arriving, sharp and fast like metal birds. Ava shouted, "They're charging their plasma cannons. We can't take another hit." Hayes clenched his fists. "Then we hit them first." He turned to the weapons officer. "Target the nearest ship." Full volley. "But sir, our power cells—" "Do it!" Hayes ordered. The Valkyrie roared back to life. Massive cannons along its hull fired beams of light that sliced through the dark. One alien ship exploded, then another. The humans cheered for just a second before another plasma blast slammed into them. The bridge shook violently. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Ava screamed, "We've lost gravity control!" Hayes floated up for a second before slamming back down as the backup systems kicked in. He wiped blood from his face. "I don't care if this ship's falling apart. Keep firing!" The humans obeyed without hesitation. To them, the fight wasn't over. It would never be over as long as one human was still breathing. Lero and Mara reached the observation deck. Through the large glass window, they could see the battle. Bright lights flashing across the endless black sky. The human fighters darted between enemy ships like sparks in a storm. Lero pressed his small hands to the glass. "They're so few. How can they win?" Mara answered softly. "Because they don't fight to win. They fight so others can live." Outside, one small human fighter, Eagle 1, was badly damaged. Its engine was on fire, spinning out of control. Lero watched as it flew directly toward the largest enemy cruiser. He gasped, "He's not going to—" Mara closed her eyes. "He is?" The fighter pilot's last message came through the radio, his voice calm. "For the Valkyrie. For the kid. See you on the other side." Then the small fighter crashed into the enemy ship. A massive explosion followed, breaking the cruiser in half. Lero fell to his knees, eyes wide in shock. "They die. And they smile." Mara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Yes, because they die for someone they choose to protect." Back on the bridge, Hayes gripped the command rail. "That bought us time." "Get those engines online now," Ava shouted. "Trying, sir." "Power's rerouting through backup systems. We'll have thrust in 30 seconds. "Good, that's all we need." The radar beeped. More ships were closing in. Hayes smiled grimly. "They never learn." He opened a comm channel to the entire crew. "This is Commander Hayes. I know you're tired. I know you're scared. But that child down there lost everything. And I'll be damned if we let them take him again. Humans don't run. We protect. That's what makes us dangerous." All over the ship, crew members shouted back through comms, "For the Valkyrie!" For Earth. For the kid. The engines flared back to life, weak but burning bright. The Valkyrie turned sharply, charging toward the enemy fleet instead of away from it. Ava gasped. "We're going straight into them." Hayes grinned. "Exactly." The Valkyrie roared forward, weapons blazing. Every gun fired. Every missile launched. The human ship cut through the alien line like a storm through paper. Outside, debris floated, glowing in the darkness. The battlefield burned like a new sunrise. Down below, Lero watched the chaos. He felt tears rolling down his face, not from fear, but something else. He whispered, "They fight like fire." "Like living storms." Dr. Mara smiled through exhaustion. "Now you understand, don't you?" Lero nodded slowly. "The galaxy calls them monsters, because they can't control them." Then suddenly the ship shuddered hard. The bridge lights flickered off again. Lero's heart raced. "What's happening?" Mara's eyes widened as she read the alert on her wristpad. "Enemy boarding ships. They're coming inside." The hallway outside filled with pounding metal footsteps. The humans grabbed weapons, forming a line at the door. Hayes' voice came through the intercom, tired but strong. "All hands, repel boarders. Protect the child." The humans loaded their rifles. Lero hid behind Mara, shaking. The first door exploded open, and enemy soldiers poured in. The humans opened fire, loud, bright, fierce. Smoke filled the corridor and screams echoed. Lero covered his ears. He could barely breathe, but even through the fear, he saw something he could never forget. A human soldier, bleeding and shot, still crawled forward to pull another crewmate to safety. Even dying, they never stopped helping each other. When the shooting stopped, silence filled the air again. Only a few humans still stood, weapons raised. The floor was covered in smoke and sparks. Then from the comm system, a calm voice spoke. "This is Commander Hayes. Enemy boarders neutralized. But we lost half our crew." Mara lowered her weapon, breathing heavily. Lero stared at her and whispered, "How can they keep fighting?" She looked at him with tired eyes. "Because that's what humans do. They fight, even when there's nothing left to save but hope." Lero looked out the window once more. The stars seemed brighter now. He finally understood why the galaxy feared humans. They were dangerous, not because they were cruel, but because they never ever gave up. The ship was quiet now, and too quiet. Smoke drifted through the corridors. The smell of metal, blood, and burnt wires filled the air. The battle outside had slowed, but the Valkyrie was barely holding together. Commander Hayes sat on the floor of the bridge, his back against a cracked console. His uniform was torn, his face pale. Ava knelt beside him. "Sir, medical says you need rest." Hayes gave a tired smile. "Rest later. We're not done yet." The radar screen flickered. 3 enemy ships still circled nearby, waiting to strike again. Ava whispered, "If they attack now, we won't survive." Hayes nodded slowly. So then we'll make sure they don't. He pressed a small button on his wrist console and opened a private message. To anyone who finds this recording, this is Commander Hayes of the UNS Valkyrie. If we don't make it, tell the galaxy. Humans fought not for power, not for glory, but for one scared child who needed help. He paused, his voice weak. They call us monsters. Maybe we are, but monsters can love too. Down in the medbay, Lero sat on the floor beside Dr. Mara. The walls were cracked, the lights dim. He held a small metal chip in his hand, one the commander had dropped earlier. "What is this?" he asked. Mara looked up from her console. "That's a memory chip. It might have the commander's logs." Lero inserted the chip into the medbay screen. Static filled the monitor for a moment. Then Hayes's face appeared. He looked younger, wearing the same uniform but with no scars. The recording began. Personal log, Commander Jonathan Hayes. Year 2245, Earth calendar. Another peace mission gone wrong. The Council still calls us dangerous. I guess they're right. We've done terrible things, but we've also saved worlds no one else dared to touch. The image flickered. Hayes continued. They call us killers, but they never talk about the worlds we rebuilt after the wars. They forget the billions we rescued from slave fleets. They fear us because we don't bow, because when we see someone in chains, we break the chains. Lero's eyes filled with tears as he listened. He whispered, "They fight because no one else will." The doctor nodded slowly. "That's the truth about humans, Lero. They're dangerous, yes, but not because they want to rule. They're dangerous because they care too much. They fight for others even when it hurts them." Lero looked down at his small hands. He felt something new inside, something hot and bright. Courage. The ship trembled again. An alarm blared through the holes. Ava's voice echoed over the speakers. "Enemy ships are charging weapons." "We've got 5 minutes." Mara looked around desperately. "We can't take another hit." "The shields are gone." Lero stared at the medbay console. His species had special knowledge of energy systems. His father had taught him when he was little. He suddenly remembered. "I can help," he said quietly. Mara turned to him, shocked. "What?" "I can fix the shield core. My people use similar tech. I just need access to the lower deck." The doctor hesitated. "It's dangerous down there." Lero took a deep breath. "I'm not afraid anymore." The corridors were dark and full of smoke, but Lero moved fast. He crawled through a broken vent to reach the engineering room. Sparks flashed around him, and the sound of distant explosions echoed through the walls. Inside the engine room, wires hung loose. The core was flickering, a dying heart of light. He climbed up the console and started working, his small fingers moving quickly. "If I connect the plasma intake here, reroute through the auxiliary power." The console beeped. "Warning, overload risk." Lero whispered, "I know. Just a little more." The lights around him began to brighten. The ship hummed again, a low, steady pulse. On the bridge, Ava gasped. "Sir, the shield is rising. Power levels stabilizing." Hayes looked at the screen, amazed. Who the hell did that? Mara's voice came through the comms. "It's the kid, sir. He's fixing your ship." Hayes smiled weakly. "Of course he is." Lero finished reconnecting the last wire. The core glowed bright blue, and for a moment, the entire ship felt alive again. He smiled. Then the console sparked violently. A burst of energy threw him backward. Mara ran in seconds later, pulling him up. "You did it, Lero." "The shields are back." He coughed and smiled. "I told you, humans don't fight alone." On the bridge, Hayes gave the order. "All guns target the lead ship." "Let's end this." The Valkyrie turned sharply, engines roaring. The newly restored shields glowed bright as enemy fire hit them and bounced away. Hayes shouted, "Fire everything we've got." The ship's cannons lit up the dark, firing round after round. One enemy ship exploded, then another. The final cruiser tried to run, but the Valkyrie's rail cannon locked on and fired. A flash of white light filled the void. Silence followed. Ava stared at the screen in disbelief. "They're gone, sir." "All of them." Hayes leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes. "Good work, everyone. The kid saved us." In the medbay, Mara bandaged Lero's arm. He was tired but smiling. "Did we win?" he asked. Mara nodded. "Thanks to you." Lero looked out the window. The stars were calm again. For the first time since his planet burned, he felt peace. He whispered, "Humans, They're not monsters. Mara smiled softly. No, but sometimes monsters are what the galaxy needs. Hayes's voice came through the speaker one last time. Attention all crew. We're alive because one small alien believed in us. Remember that. Maybe there's hope for this galaxy after all. Lero looked up, his eyes full of light. Maybe hope is the most dangerous thing humans have, and for the first time he smiled, not in fear but in pride. The battle was over. Space was quiet again, cold, endless, and full of drifting light. The wrecks of alien warships floated like dark shadows among the stars. At the center of it all, the human ship UNS Valkyrie still moved, broken but alive. Inside, the corridors were filled with smoke and silence. Every step echoed through the damaged halls. The humans were tired, wounded, but still standing. They had done the impossible, again. Commander Hayes limped down the main corridor, his arm in a sling. Crew members saluted as he passed, even with bandages on their faces. He stopped by the medbay door, took a slow breath and stepped inside. Lero was sitting on a hospital bed, wrapped in a warm grey blanket. Dr. Mara was beside him, checking his vitals. When Lero saw Hayes, his small face lit up. "You're alive," he whispered. Hayes smiled. "Takes more than a few explosions to kill a human." The child giggled softly, something he hadn't done since his homeworld burned. For a moment, the medbay felt peaceful, like a quiet island in a storm. Hayes sat beside the bed, wincing as he lowered himself into a chair. "You saved this ship, kid. Without you, we'd be space dust." Lero shook his head. "You saved me first. I gave back." The commander smiled. "That's how it should be." For a long moment, they both sat in silence, listening to the hum of the ship's engines. Finally, Lero asked, "Commander, why does the galaxy fear you? Why do they call you monsters?" Hayes looked down at his hands. His voice was quiet, heavy. "Because we did terrible things once. We fought wars that broke worlds. We survived by doing what others couldn't. The galaxy remembers our fire, not our kindness." He looked at Lero and added, "But we changed. We learned that strength doesn't mean cruelty. It means protecting those who can't fight back. That's the truth they never see." Lero nodded slowly. "Then they are wrong about you." Hayes chuckled softly. "Maybe, but it's all right if they're afraid. Fear keeps them honest." Hours later, the crew gathered in the hangar. The walls were scorched, lights flickering, but spirits were high. They had won. Hayes stood before his crew, leaning on a metal cane. His voice echoed through the hall. "Listen up, everyone. We fought today for something no one else would fight for. A child. Not from Earth, not from our world, but from his." He pointed toward Lero, who stood shyly beside Dr. Mara. The humans clapped and cheered. Hayes continued, "They call us the most dangerous species." Maybe they're right. But they forget why we're dangerous. It's not because we destroy. It's because we protect. Because we never stop. He paused, his voice deepening. Dangerous doesn't mean evil. It means unstoppable when something good is worth fighting for. The room filled with applause. Lero looked around, amazed. He had never seen warriors smile like this before, not with pride in killing, but pride in saving. Later, Hayes found Lero in the observation deck staring at the stars. The boy spoke softly. "When I left my planet, I thought the universe was full of monsters." He looked at Hayes. "I was right, but I was wrong about who they were." Hayes smiled faintly. "We all start afraid of what we don't know." He placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "What will you do now?" Lero looked out at the stars again. "I want to go home, but I have no home left." The commander nodded slowly. "Then make a new one. You can stay with us. You're part of this crew now." Lero's eyes widened. "Me? A human ship?" Hayes grinned. "Why not? You already saved it." The boy smiled, feeling warmth spread through his chest. For the first time, he didn't feel like a lost alien. He felt like he belonged. Weeks passed. The Valkyrie returned to human space. News of the battle spread across the stars. Everywhere, people, human and alien alike, whispered about the ship that defied an armada to save one small child. They whispered about the humans, the species too wild to control, too kind to ignore. Some feared them even more. But others began to wonder, maybe the galaxy's monsters were really its guardians. One night, Lero stood at the viewport again, wearing a small jacket with the Valkyrie's emblem stitched on it. He watched the stars pass by and whispered, "They were wrong about you, Mother. Humans don't destroy everything. Sometimes. They save what's left. Dr. Mara stepped beside him. Couldn't sleep. Lero smiled. Just thinking. She looked out the window. About what? He whispered. About how dangerous kindness can be. Mara smiled. Now you sound like a human. As the Valkyrie glided through the endless dark, Hayes recorded one final log. Commander Hayes, final report on Operation Valkyrie. The galaxy will call this a battle, but it was more than that. It was proof. Proof that even the smallest spark of mercy can light up the darkest sky. We are what they fear because we are what they cannot understand. We fight for those who can't fight for themselves. He paused, smiling. And that's what makes us human. He ended the recording and looked out at the stars, where a faint blue planet shimmered in the distance. Set course for home, he said softly. Let's take our new crew member to Earth. The engines roared to life. The ship turned toward the light. As the stars stretched and the Valkyrie jumped into hyperspace, a voice echoed in the darkness. Lero's voice, older and stronger, telling this story to others one day. I once thought humans were monsters, but monsters do not bleed for others. They do not burn just to keep someone else warm. The most dangerous species in the galaxy saved me, and in that silence between the stars, hope burned brighter than ever before.